This is the Eureka Springs Parks and Recreation Commission regular meeting for May 18, 2021. Call the meeting to order. Dave, if you would call roll.
Sure. Scott Barden.
Here.
Scott Miskell, Director.
Here.
Sue Hubbard.
Here.
Ruth Hager.
Here.
Kevin Rulli.
Here.
Carmen Burton.
Here.
And Dave Hartman here.
Excellent. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda for,
I'll second.
All in favor?
aye.
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 Unanimous? Okay, do we have any public comments tonight? Okay, we'll move on into business. Chairman's comments. I just want to touch briefly on some of the progress that we've been making. And it's felt like a spring that was hard to get things going, but I think we've finally got some traction. I'm sure Scott will cover some more of these in detail. We've finally got the pavilion reconstruction project in motion. Materials have been ordered. We'll start doing demolition as soon as we have a dump truck to load everything into. And hopefully we'll have it back up by the middle of summer. Trails maintenance is making a lot of great progress. Sam and Corey have been doing great work out there, and they're just kind of working their way through the trails that have been neglected for a long time, and not the downhill trails. I mean, the Fuller Trail and Overlook have been receiving a lot of attention. Sam Dudley has taken over our website and social media, and he's doing a great job with it. We've really been able to clean things up, make sure that we've got consistent information on it, get rid of the incorrect information, and as much as anything, getting rid of all the duplicate sites. There were, when I came on the commission, I think we found 12 different sites that attributed themselves to Eureka Springs Parks or Eureka Springs Trails, and half of them hadn't been updated in a year or more. I think the big thing is kind of looking forward to the remainder of the second quarter, the things that we'd like to get accomplished and be able to put behind us. I'm going to try to have a second draft of the bylaws for the commission to review at our next workshop, hopefully, if not by the regular meeting, and get the mayor and city attorney to weigh in on them as well. The director search, we'll let the search committee update on that here in a little bit. I've asked Scott and Dave to initiate an organizational review so that we can look at the needs of the park, identify the positions, and not just keep falling back on the legacy positions that have existed for a long time and didn't really have great definition to them. And then along with that, define the pay range for each of those positions, so it's all very clear. We know what we're doing. We're actually in a position where we're doing well against the budget, the payroll budget for the year, and we've identified some additional needs. So the product of this will be able to fill some positions that'll be able to help Scott and Dave day to day. And then I've also asked Scott to start doing research on a time tracking app for employees to clock in and clock out. And one of the things about parks is that, with the exception of Scott, and it's not even Scott full-time, Scott and Nikki's really the only person that's in the parks office, and you know where he is all of the working day. Everybody else is scattered to the four winds all over the park and all over town. And the great thing about a lot of the apps, and there's probably the best rated one, is actually owned by QuickBooks and syncs easily with our accounting software. Also allows for geolocation, so you know where the employee was when they clocked in, where they were when they clocked out. and it's easy to locate them, even if they're in a place where they don't have cell service, GPS will still work. So those are just kind of the big things on the agenda. I will say that one of the things that we've made real progress on, Scott Miskell and Nikki and Scott Barden, is on all the financials. I had the pleasure of spending 7 hours driving to Little Rock and back last week to testify in front of the Legislative Audit Committee and explain why there were repeat audit issues, and most of them had to do with the accounting and bookkeeping in the past years. And they're all issues that we've addressed, so we won't have those issues in the future. So with that, I'll hand it over to Scott.
Thank you. In reality, you've covered a lot of what I would have, just to fill in the gaps on a few things. As was just indicated, we are about to begin the restoration of the pavilion. The contract for that has actually been signed. There's some additional stonework and engineering that will be included, but all of it was within the budget amounts that have already been approved. We did finally complete the remodel of cabin 1. That's the first cabin as you come in to the park, and that's very important because it's our most expensive cabin as far as the fees that we receive, and it was also in the worst shape. We did everything from replacing the roof to both the bathroom and the bedroom floor joists were rotted out, so we had to completely go down to not just bare studs, I mean removing studs and removing floor joists. Our maintenance person, Vince, did most of that work on his own. This project is something that would have cost us $25,000 or more easily, and probably ended up costing us in the $10,000 range. And so everything down to a complete remodel of the bathroom, new tile, everything. It's very nice looking. We are still going to need to do some repairs on the siding and then paint it, but otherwise the interior is done. So I'm excited that is now open again for rental. David Renko from the beginning has been working on signs, designing, ordering, and then beginning to install a lot of the signage that we were so desperate for. Picnic tables and trash cans, 7 of the large picnic tables finally came in. They were ordered back in December, but due to COVID reasons, we just now received and are installing those. I don't believe you mentioned anything about the...
No.
Would you like to interject?
No, go ahead.
Okay. There's a contract with NWA Trailblazers with Progressive Trail Designs. There was some signage that was designed, and then there was also work or a contract with Progressive Trail Designs to redesign the maps that we hand out, and they're really in high demand. Until we didn't have them, I didn't realize how many people would come in for these, and so they're making sure that those are all correct and doing some redesign. So that's something I know people have been waiting for quite some time. I understand we likely will be receiving some funds, but I don't have the specifics on that, so I won't comment further on that, but we should be receiving some funds to offset some of that. The design work for the mess that we have at Magnetic Spring with the basins that are crumbling has been done, and there's a lot involved there, and so rather than presenting something this evening for review, I hope to have it on the agenda for the next workshop, and we'll have the likely contractor for that come and be available to answer questions and such. But that's one of the biggest problem areas that we have, although we have many, but it's something that I look forward to hopefully being able to begin remedying those issues here soon. As was suggested a few moments ago, we're revising job descriptions, things like rules and regulations, procedure manuals, things that will give us continuity. I've mentioned this from probably the first day I was appointed interim director. That was a goal that I have, and want to make sure it's done. It's just a lot of work. We may need some administrative help with that. But at any rate, it is, we are making progress on that. I also want to clarify one thing that I read recently about the possibility that I or we in Parks use Roundup. And in fact, I had written a memo specifically reminding employees that we do not use Roundup. And in fact, other types of poisonous products that, in fact, one was purchased recently, and when I saw that before I approved the memo, approved the payment of that, I directed that that be returned. And so, however, that statement ended up in the public. I want to reaffirm that no, we do not use those, and just let the public know that the only sort of chemicals that we currently use are, there are some like pest control from contract pest control company for the buildings and those sorts of things, and a weed and feed is used on the ball fields, and we've even recently begun discussions about are there alternate means for that. But those are the only authorized non-organic chemicals that we use, and at least with my knowledge or permission will be used. So I just want to make that clear. That's a commitment I understand was made years ago, and it's one that we continue with. So we continue to plug away. I've been reminded a few times lately that we just need to keep the course and be patient. A lot of these things that I wish we could wave a magic wand and repair, fix, and whatnot, we're working on. The engineering for the core samples at Basin Park, the check's been written, the contract's been signed. We're just waiting for that to be scheduled.
Do we have an idea when we're gonna get that done?
They indicated once they got the check and the contract, they would sign the contract, return it to us, and we could schedule the date. It was sent out approximately a week ago, so it should be very soon.
Okay.
We're
going to need to be careful that we schedule it, as the weather gets better and things start opening back up. We're going to need to be careful that we schedule it around anything that may be on the city calendar.
I've already mentioned the possibility, or not the possibility, the fact that for that and for a crane for removing the larger trees in Basin Park, there will be some temporary closures of the road. Nothing that should be more than a few hours at a time, half a day perhaps, but we are coordinating that in our department head meetings, and we definitely will make sure it's done on the dates or days that are, we have a consensus with all of the departments that it's the best days to do it. So we certainly will coordinate all of that. I think that hits the highlights. The other couple of items that involving trees and other such things are on the agenda, so we'll discuss those when we get to them. Thank you.
Okay. Committee reports. Carmen, Trails?
No Trail Committee report at this time. I will have another Trail Committee meeting, though, May 26th at 6 p.m. at Main Stage, if anybody's interested.
Okay. Finance, Scott? You got anything?
No.
Okay. And the search committee.
Yeah, so we closed the application period closed on the 15th. We did receive a number of applicants. We are going to meet this Thursday at 8 o'clock at Godhold Marine Company to go over them and discuss. The number of applicants is relatively small, smaller than we'd hoped. So there is the possibility that we may feel that we need to reopen the search process based on that, but we're not sure yet. So we'll be meeting and we'll report back, I guess, at the workshop.
Okay. And there's no old business, so we can start into the new business. Item number 1 is fireworks. Funding or partially funding fireworks display for the July 4th. We are, I think it's safe to say, a little behind the 8 ball on this. And I don't know if historically parks took the lead on fireworks or if it's just kind of migrated there in the past. I've met with Jeff Carter of the AMP Commission a couple times, and I was at their workshop last week with a proposal that we split the cost of the fireworks up to $5,000 apiece. The intent, we had 2 proposals from the fireworks company. One was $10,000, which is essentially the same as cost us $8,000 2 years ago, or the last time fireworks were done. They are now more expensive. There's also a $15,000 proposal. The preferred date is the 4th. They are only able to do it on July 2nd, which is Friday, or the 4th, Sunday. They can't do it on Saturday. Obviously, the CAPC, their preference would be to do it on a Sunday night as a draw to get people into town and spend the entire 3-day weekend here. They have not voted on it because it was a commission meeting, or it was a workshop meeting for them. They have not voted on it yet. We are in a position where we're kind of holding off the provider. He's wanting a commitment very soon because obviously he can do, especially on the 4th, he can fill that slot very easily. They will only do the 4th for the $15,000 proposal. Jeff has approached both Passion Play and the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce has said they have no money in their budget to support it, but they will go to their business members and try to raise funds to help offset the cost of it for us so that it doesn't fall entirely to the CAPC and us. So I think we're faced with, and I don't, Scott, the last time you spoke to him, when did they need a commitment by? Well, I mean, they wanted it Friday, but.
Yes.
Yeah.
They obviously are needing to plan. I explained to them that we had a meeting this evening and that it would take a vote. It's not a budgeted item. At the time the budget was being put together, all events were not allowed at the time anyway, but also it was a budget matter. And so I explained to him that it was an item that the commission would have to approve. So he understands that basically tomorrow would be the earliest he would have an agreement one way or another. I did attach the 2 proposals, the one for the $10,000 and the one for $15,000, so you can see what would be provided. Basically, one point it was being discussed, by the way, that it would be up at Plainer Hill, but that's impossible due to the laws that apply. It's too close to buildings and traffic. So the area that's being talked about is Marble Flats, as was done last time. Of course, we would need permission of that property owner. And otherwise, there's nothing else that they need from us. I was involved 2 years ago last time in helping to set that one up, and it was a whole lot more work than we would have to do this time. It would be a whole lot more streamlined and easy as far as anything they need from us, other than, of course, funding. So I think if we don't give them a commitment, get a contract signed within the next day or two, then we will have missed the opportunity, or possibly will.
Right. So part of the question would be, because I'm not sure, I think the next CAPC meeting is, I don't believe it's this week, I think it's next week. And I can talk to Jeff about seeing if they can put a special meeting together to try to get approval on it. I think it's important, especially after the last year of lockdown and nothing really happening, that, to have a good 4th of July event that's visible from town, from just about anywhere in town. The display will be visible from the Marble Flats, shooting them off at Marble Flats. I think that I think there's very little risk that CAPC will not approve to cover their share of it. The risk is with 15,000 that it's 7,500 apiece for us unless the chamber can get business owners to contribute to offset it. And there's always the odd chance that for some reason the CAPC may vote no on funding it. So I think when we make a commitment to him, do we have to provide a deposit? Has he talked about that at all?
In reality, no, he hasn't. So if I tell him that we've approved it, but CAPC still needs to, I suspect the response, don't know, but suspect that the response would be that they will hold the date open for us, but if somebody preempts us with full payment or a written contract, that they will jump ahead of us in priority. Perhaps I could get them to agree to a 24-hour, 48-hour, notice of, or say first right of refusal, something along those lines. I'm sure I could get that out of them at least. They're needing to know, obviously.
Yeah.
So.
And can I say, I think we all know this, everyone in town would support us doing fireworks. I don't think there's any negative, or very little negative feedback we'll get to supporting it and providing the money for it, even if we have to do the whole 15,000, which is a lot of money. I don't want to.
Yeah.
If we did, I still think that is worth it. I think the amount of money it will bring into town, the 3-day weekend is a Sunday this year.
Yeah.
Crazy not to jump on it as fast as we can if we can find someone who can do it on that day. I hope that CAPC can help out, but I hope we can move quickly.
So what I would like to do is, I'd like to make a motion that we agree to between $5,000 and $7,500 to be spent on fireworks. I would like to, in that, agree to make a commitment to the company so that we get the date and we hold the date. And I'll have a conversation with Jeff tomorrow about it and see how quickly CAPC can act on it. I agree. I think it's something that would be good for this year, and it'll be the weekend after we anticipate all restrictions being lifted in town. And I think it'll be a great way to kind of kick off the second half of the summer, hopefully restriction-free.
So too. Shall I make a motion?
Sure.
I move that we authorize parks to pay for fireworks between $5,000 and $7,500, which would be our half. And in the process, commit to the fireworks company that we are interested. Is that right?
Okay. Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
I'd actually like to
Oh, I'm sorry,
discuss-
discussion.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to hear from the Finance Committee if they feel this is something we can cover reasonably.
I think we're in good shape financially. We're seeing that revenues are up over last year. We did not, when we set the budget, the projected revenues were based on the totals from last year, basically, which had no revenue from the second quarter at all. Shuttle revenues are exceeding our projections at this point, even with all the bad weather that we've had. We're doing much better than we had projected this early on. I don't think there's an issue from a budget standpoint. We're in good shape. In fact, once we do the organizational review and we start getting some numbers in on magnetic and some of the other things, and we'll sit down and look at that and make adjustments as we need to, but I think we're in very good shape at this point.
My discussion items, so number one, so Ruth, just to be clear, you're saying we're between 5,000 and 7,500, and we're also going to, put down a deposit with the
I didn't say deposit, I said commit.
A commitment, okay.
I don't know what that commitment will entail. He'll find out whether it's a deposit or whether it's a,
I mean, I guess I feel like we should define that, because we're talking about a display that's going to cost between 10 and 15.
Right.
So we're potentially on the hook. I mean, if we sign this and the CAP says no, then we're on the hook for $10,000 or?
I think the potential risk is I would guess that once we sign an agreement with them and make a commitment, there's going to have to be a deposit of some sort. So I think the real risk is the deposit.
So we put down a deposit and then we decide to walk away from that.
Right. But I don't, I kind of agree with Ruth. I think we can find a way to fund the rest of it. I don't anticipate CAPC saying no, because they
Sure.
see it as important as we do.
And my other issue is, I'm not sure that, I don't know that fireworks really falls under what parks ought to be doing.
it has been traditionally parks that did it in Eureka over the years when we did it, and mostly because it was at Lake Leatherwood. And often that was not as practical because it's out of town, although there's plenty of parking, there's plenty of open space. Having it in town, I think, was popular when they did it at Marble Flats. It helps the businesses in town to do well too, because people are in town. People are walking around, that probably helps them.
Yeah, I
But
think-
in other cities, when we looked at it years ago, to see how other people pay for their, it's either parks departments or it's fire departments. That's pretty much the only options for paying for fireworks.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure that it really makes sense that I go that way, but if that's what's historically happened, that's what's historically happened.
Yeah. I think they're probably in it, with the luxury of time for next year, we can look at this a little more holistically and determine whether this is the right place for it. If it is, that's fine. We'll just budget.
Yeah, I mean, I know it was
forward.
popular 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
I definitely would be psyched to have fireworks. I just don't know that it's a park's responsibility to
Right.
do so. It seems like more of a tourism-related phenomena.
And I know there's a motion pending,
Yes.
but if I could interject a couple thoughts in case anyone wants to move to amend the motion before it's voted on. I don't know that we have any sort of commitment or permission from the owners of Marble Flats, although I don't expect a problem with that. And of course, we probably need approvals from the, correct me if I'm wrong, that's in county, not city?
No, it's in the city.
Oh, it is city.
That portion of Marble Flats is owned by NWA Trailblazers,
Oh,
so it won't be an issue getting permission from them. And it'll be the city, and we'll just work through the fire marshal.
Okay, very well. And if the commission does approve the motion that's pending at the moment, the way I would pursue it is to do it as a letter of intent and request 2 business days for, if they sign someone else that is going to preempt us before we can get them full payment, that we'd have 2 business days notice to step up to the plate and pay the full deposit or receive that deposit back. So it should be relatively non-committal in the sense that we would have notice and a brief opportunity to to have a special meeting to decide whether or not we were going to fund it ourselves if we don't get funds from CAPC or another organization.
Okay.
Do I need to add something about that in my motion, other than, I think I did say to allow, did I say to allow Scott to? No, I
Send a
didn't.
letter of intent.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's make sure we have this stated correctly. So I move to approve a payment of between $5,000 and $7,000 to J&M Displays, Inc. for a fireworks display on July 4th, 2021, and to make so you had something about making a commitment. We're going to strike that, and we're going to put in, sign a letter of intent.
Sign a letter of intent.
And I believe the amount should be 7,500,
Yeah.
but wouldn't that be half of 15?
Yep,
Wait, what, can you?
7,500.
So
Between
just take out the
5,000.
so
Between-
take out 5,000, move
Okay.
to approve the payment of, should we say up to 7,500?
Up to 7,500 is fine.
Okay. Okay,
Okay, you want to read it back one more time, please, Dave?
sure. I move to approve payment of up to $7,500 to J&M Displays, Inc. for a fireworks display on July 4th, 2021, and to sign a letter of intent towards that end. And Ruth is
That was
the
my motion
and Carmen
amended.
is the second.
Second.
I'm okay
Any
with
other
that.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to be a no.
I'm a no.
So what do we have? 1, 2, 3,
3,
4. I'll
2.
vote yes.
And you can vote if you want.
I'll vote yes.
Okay.
The motion passes. Okay, the next item. It apparently came to Scott's attention last week or week before last that we have a safe deposit box at Cornerstone Bank that nobody knew about. And they discovered it when we got the bill for it. But the only two authorized people are Justin Huss, and who was it, James Weaver?
It wasn't James Weaver.
Scott Weaver,
I don't have the other name with me tonight, but it was another former employee.
Oh, I thought it was a commissioner.
Commissioner Weaver.
Or commissioner,
Weaver
excuse
was
me,
commissioner.
but from some time ago,
Yeah.
yes.
So we have, Scott has drafted letters. I've got them right here. There are actually two letters that need to go to the bank that we need to vote on. One is to change access to the safe deposit box so that we can determine whether there's anything in it. And if there's not anything in it, I don't see any reason why we need a safe deposit box, nor do we need to be paying for a safe deposit box, so they can, we can cancel that. So the first letter says to Cornerstone Bank, to whom it may concern, we request that Cornerstone Bank allow the following persons who have access to Parks Department safe deposit box 317999. It's Kevin Ruley, Commissioner, Scott Miskell, Interim Director, and Nikki Boyette, Clerk. The second letter to Cornerstone Bank has to do with the electronic banking that we're trying to set up and providing access to it. And so this one is to whom it may concern regarding Parks Department accounts, and the account number is written. We request Cornerstone Bank set up online access for the following persons: Kevin Ruley, Chair; Scott Barden, Vice Chair; Dave Hartman, Secretary; Scott Miskell, Director; and Nikki Boyette, Clerk.
Do you need motions for those letters
Yeah, we can just do them both with
together?
one motion.
Okay. I move that we submit these letters to Cornerstone Bank to authorize people for the electronic banking and to authorize for the safe deposit box.
We have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
My understanding from years past is that the reason they had the safety deposit box was to store tapes from the system as part of the audit finding for off-site storage. That's why that is there.
Okay.
Doesn't mean it's the right way to do it, but that's how that got created. And supposedly they were, Dove was putting tapes in there that were backups to the system. Now, how often and so on, I don't know. I don't know what was in there. I brought this up to the commission 2 years ago about the safety deposit box, but no action was taken. So that's why it's still been in limbo until now.
Okay. So this is copies of QuickBooks?
I don't
Or-
know. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just telling you what I was told.
Okay.
I-
So,
To answer that question, the QuickBooks that we use is the online version of QuickBooks, so it doesn't get backed up. It's automatically
It's on
backed
cloud.
up on the QuickBooks server. So I'm not sure what's in there.
Okay.
And by the way, I should also add, we have 2 safes, one in the office and one in fact, I want to mention the other. We do have 2 safes. Let's
Yeah.
leave it at that. So we will have to see what's in there.
Okay.
But it shouldn't be backups of the accounting system, but perhaps backups of the recordings of meetings, or I have no idea.
we'll find out.
We'll find out. Could be treasure in there. Who knows?
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Passes. Okay, third item is rules changes that we discussed at the last workshop. Scott, do you want to go through them?
Yes, and we did discuss them in a fair amount of detail at the workshop recently, so I'll just summarize that I did make all of the changes that were discussed. We're talking about adding the fact that not injuring or dealing with animals, fowls, or fish does not prevent us from people from fishing with the proper license and lawful means, etc. We removed the language in the rule as to commercial and heavy laden vehicles, just because it's so difficult to come up with language as to what that really means and how does that compare to a large RV, etc. Glass containers, we are only prohibiting glass containers in certain areas, such as around the bathhouse, marina, etc., but not in other areas. Model rockets, remote-controlled aircraft, etc. We dropped the language related to drones, and I would just like to comment for a moment on that. The law as to drones and what the allowable airspace is really in a state of flux right now. And we did have a complaint, not a complaint, a very constructive dialogue between he and I related to use of drones. And what it boils down to is, just like you cannot prohibit an aircraft from flying over your property at 35,000 feet, that's usable airspace. The FAA does define airspace for drones, at least non-licensed drones, as 400 feet and below. They haven't stated how far below, because there is some level of usable space above the land that the law does consider still part of the land, but it just hasn't been defined. The point being is because of the lack of specificity of the law, it's something that I removed the languages to drones with the idea that we would continue the dialogue, continue to research the law. I've talked with some of the local other parks directors. 2 weeks ago, David Renko and I met with a few others, Fayetteville, Rogers, etc., and they've taken the same approach, that it's just too muddy right now. So we've done that. We did combine I had some language about handbill distributions, and then a very lengthy section or article about the constitutionality of prohibiting somebody from handing out free speech or free religion type things. And there was some overlap there, so we are removing section 211.20 and just relying on the more lengthy description of what can or can't be done as to handbills. As far as removal of plants, tree cutting, etc., we did add that prohibited the collection of firewood. That was mentioned that is a concern, so I did add that firewood could not be collected. We also added fungi as to things that can't just be removed from the parks. And because there was some discussion about, well, what about people who like to forage? I did add language. We did not discuss how I was going to approach this, so I'll just read the sentence. I added that the director in his or her discretion may establish programs to educate the public in foraging for plants and fungi, and which may allow such foraging with proper instruction and/or supervision. So that will enable us to develop a program of some sort, but unless and until that's done, it's not going to be allowed. I did change, I had referred to certified guide dogs, and we did change that to the appropriate language of a bona fide service animal. Also, as to release of, had focused predominantly on reptiles. We just said nobody can release any animals within the parks. And finally, there was an issue as to operating hours and patrons having to leave when operating hours were over, and we just added except in a properly reserved and paid for campsite or cabin. I believe other than the one embellishment that I made as to foraging, those are all the discussion items that we had in our previous workshop.
Okay. Can I get a
I
motion?
move that we adopt the rule changes as laid out.
I second.
Any discussion?
Can we just clarify, or I don't know if we want to attach these, or the rule changes as laid out is kind of vague for minutes?
I know, I'm thinking that too.
If
Attach them.
I did want to go ahead and just mention, and I'm making a habit from now on when I do an agenda, right after that I have proposed motions, and anytime we have something like this or a contract, I do believe that it is important that we attach that. So with the proposed motion that I had stated said that we would, you would direct the interim director to insert those changes into the park rules and provide a complete set of the amended park rules to the secretary of the commission to be attached to the minutes of tonight's meeting. So,
I amend my motion to say that.
okay.
So moved.
And second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sue, that was you? Who was the second? Sue, okay.
Sue was.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. And agenda item number 4, discuss contract for the assessment of trees in the pocket parks. Scott, I will let you
Thank you, sir.
take that.
We do have a substantial number of issues with trees that have caused problems within the parks, especially the pocket parks in town, up against or adjacent to walls, or trees that are very large and in a precarious situation, close to buildings, etc. And yet we want to be very careful about not just indiscriminately removing trees. And I mean beyond what the tree ordinances require. We need to be good stewards of all of our assets, and the trees being one of those primary ones. I think I see Chris Fisher here, but is that Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. The lights are making it difficult to see. So we do have a proposed contract for a tree assessment, and it is the document that's attached as Attachment 3 to the minutes. And this provides for an assessment of the trees, and he specifically outlines the areas that he would assess and the approximate number of hours that he would need. And these are just approximates, but the total ends up being $625. And this is, by the way, consistent with the $1,000 that I had initially in the budget for, I just had said arborist. So this is consistent with what's already been requested in the budget. Mr. Fisher has been kind enough to even provide the types of forms that he would use where he would assess trees that are potential problem trees, also even things that we should do in an affirmative way. In other words, maybe we should consider adding this or adding that. And since Mr. Fisher is here, perhaps somebody might have questions of him. If not, contract or proposed contract is provided, and I presume you've all had the opportunity to peruse it. So that being said, I think it's very important for us to make sure that we are dealing with our trees in an appropriate way. I personally have seen, and I won't even say in parks, let's just say in general, I've seen people cut down trees that really shouldn't have been and leave trees that probably should have come down. And to have somebody with the qualifications that Mr. Fisher has, and yet also the passion and just passion, the knowledge, etc., I think that it's well worth the relatively nominal expense to get his expertise and have a plan for what we are going to do as far as our trees for the future. And again, Mr. Fisher is here if anybody had any questions for him.
So, Chris, if you would, just I'm assuming that this isn't like a hard number or a not to exceed number. This is just your estimate of time based on your knowledge of these spring reservations, correct?
Frame that again, would you?
I just, looking through the language of it, I just want to make sure that this is just your initial estimate of the time that you believe you're going to take. And I guess the point I'm getting at is we already have $1,000 budgeted for the year for this type of work. And so I just want to make clear when we make the motion to pass this agenda item that the budget is already in place. We're not approving a number. We're approving engaging you based on this. So I just wanted to get a little bit of, get you to kind of verify that this is an estimated number based on what you believe it's going to take you to do, not necessarily a contract number.
Correct.
Okay.
But I can honor the $1,000 ceiling and work down from that if that is agreeable.
If this, for some reason, goes kind of off the rails and we need to add more to it, we can evaluate it at the time. But at this point in time, we have that much in the budget, so it's really not a matter of us approving spending money on this activity as much as it is approving engaging you specifically to do it for us.
I also structured it so that the director could use his discretion to essentially contract parts of the agreement, meaning that if he had a particular pocket park or reservation that he felt needed some sort of assessment, then we could do it on a case-by-case, as-needed program, meaning that we don't have to spend all that money and visit all of those springs if it's not deemed necessary, but that the estimate reflects a guesstimate, if you will, to look at those particular examples.
Okay. So, can we get a motion on agenda item number 4?
I move that we Allow the interim director to, thank you, Scott, for language. There we go. I move to approve the proposed contract for tree assessment services by Chris Fisher.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Okay, item number 5, and this is not a voting item. I just wanted it on the minutes as a discussion item, that I will be submitting expenses related to the trip down to Little Rock and back for the Legislative Audit Committee. I just wanted it to be on the record so that if a future audit turns up a check to Kevin Ruley, that there's a legitimate reason for it. Okay, that's it for the agenda items. Commissioner comments? Dave?
Nothing tonight.
Carmen?
Nothing.
Ruth?
No, other than, thank you, Chris. I think that's going to be a very fruitful endeavor.
Sue?
No, other than I want to thank Scott for working on those changes to the rules. I think we've pretty much got a document,
Yes.
and I'm glad you're willing to put that effort into it.
And thank you for your input.
Mr. Barden?
No, sir, I'm good. I
Okay.
was somewhat, I'm kind of perplexed at the reason that the CAPC is not handling the fireworks event versus parks. I understand both sides of it, but I know that Scott needs $7,500 to $15,000 in his budget for flowers and plants and infrastructure that's failing, but yet we're going to spend that money, and in 15 minutes, it's all smoke in the air. And we're not in that position now to do that, but I understand both sides. So I'm concerned financially because of that decision, but, you know, we are doing well, but there's always that end of the year, where are we going to be this time next year? I don't know the answer to that, and we're doing well right now, but things don't always end that way. So I'm not against it, but I'm cautious of it before we go on with this. So that's my comment on it. And I hope that when you put on an event, you know, the landowner's probably going to want some money for having it on his property. So who's going to fund that? And also, the city's got to provide fire protection and extra police. So that cost, somebody's paying that, so are they going to come to us and want us to pay that bill? That's the things that I'm concerned about. So that's my comments.
Okay. Minutes, approval of minutes from the last regular meeting, and we have two.
Two of them, don't we?
316 and
They need separate motions.
20. Did we not approve these?
We did not. They didn't. I'd sent them out so early that nobody remembered to look at them last time. So, yeah, we need to approve the last two.
Do we want a motion for each one, or do you want to put them together in one motion?
I think you should, separate motions.
Okay.
Separate motions.
I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes from, what's the date on that?
March 16th.
March 16th, 2021.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes from the Parks regular meeting of April 20th, 2021.
We have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. And if no one has anything else, then we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Motion that we adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Aye.